past haunts us all. Whether it be a person, place, or thing, we are reluctant to let go. We call to the dead out of desperation and intrigue, searching for answers about what lies behind the shadows. We are paranormal researchers. We are Necromancers. All right, hello and welcome to the Necromancer live show. I'm your host, Justin Brown. We are receiving technical difficulties. It happens, so bear with us, guys. We have Nelson Nauss with us tonight. We're going to talk about the legalities involving the paranormal, and we're going to just get right into it. If you have any questions, or if you would like to be shouted out, please just comment something down in the chat, and we will shout you out periodically. We're going to get to know Nelson a little bit before we get into the subject matter. I'm going to fix the NDI source right now and see if we can get his image on the screen. See if I can read here. Skype. Let me see if that one's it. Yep, that one's it. All right, Nelson. Go ahead and check your audio for me.
All right.
All right. We're getting something. So
awesome.
All right. Let me fix something over here. My webcam, because I can see stuff in my bedroom. Can't have that. Okay. All right. So Nelson contacts me. Of course, he, we've known about each other's work for a while now. He's a Deadlight customer, I think, or members of his group is at least. And he has been following the live shows and the topics we cover in the paranormal, and he made a suggestion about something that we should cover. And I don't know if you meant for me to cover it on the Soapbox show I do on my blog page, but I went ahead and brought it over here to the Necromancer show because that's kind of like a format that would be a little bit easier for it to discuss about it. But what was your motivation, or what sparked this idea to have this conversation? And in less words, why do you think that this should be a topic that we should discuss?
I think it's a topic that most people don't consider, but it's a very important one. And there's not a lot of information out there, and most of us don't have the funds to be able to afford attorneys. So, I mean, especially when the work that we do does bring about a certain level of risk. Whether you do residential investigations and you're going inside people's homes, there are some legal or liabilities there. Or if you're organizing events, inviting the public to come on investigations with you, there's some liabilities there as well. And those are things that are just very easily overlooked until something bad happens, and lo and behold, you get sued. Your assets are on the line. I mean, you're talking your home, your cars, in some states, even your IRA could be on the line. And that's not a pleasant thought. So that's something that I've struggled with ever since we started the Ghost Guild. I know initially we kind of talked about when we had our first meeting. I had a spreadsheet of what would be involved in actually creating an LLC to try to protect us somewhat. And we kind of proceeded. We did some events. We invited some people. Here I am, kind of leading this and collecting funds from individuals. I'm the one signing the contracts with the event spaces that we go to. That puts more liability on my shoulders. And so I wanted to protect myself. So I started looking into what are the options, what can I do to protect myself, my family, my assets, and then there's another layer to that as well, the team members themselves. So it's important to consider all of that. And And actually, and I do, if you don't mind, can I start with a very quick thing just to kind of set the tone for the topic that we're going to be talking about tonight? I've got my notes from all the research that I've done on this. So I do want to say this. I'm not an attorney. I have no authority to give legal advice. I did not stay at a Holiday Inn last night. The information that I'm discussing on the show is not intended to constitute legal advice. If you desire legal advice, consult a competent, licensed attorney. So, yeah, it's just those types of things that I wanted to kind of get an idea of what you did, wanted to reach out to you. We support you as well on Patreon. I know you'll cover that later on. Love the work that you all do. I know that a lot of our team members look up to you, and this transition that we've had from just being just an ad hoc team to kind of going into more of an incorporated, structured organization, so to speak, to try to give that additional protection. That's had some struggles within the team, and so I was curious as to what you all were doing, how you were addressing some of these issues, and at the same time, happy to share, all I've found out on the subject and the risks. Not to scare anybody, but it is pretty frightening when you really get into the details. The law is a gray area, and there's really nothing set. And states handle it differently. Every state is different. So as an example, we use a very basic, a liability waiver whenever we organize events. So if you're coming to one of our events, you have to sign this liability waiver, basically waiving that if anything happens to you, you get hurt or anything, you can't hold us liable for it. The thing to keep in mind is that liability waivers are not valid in all states. And some states are a little more lenient than others. Some states you can say that by signing this liability waiver, I waive all rights, and I also prevent my family members from being able to sue as well. Some states won't allow that. And then it adds on to that as well, that if certain parts of your waiver in the state are deemed to be invalid, then the whole waiver is invalidated unless there's a very specific clause in there saying that if sections are found to be invalid, that the rest of the waiver is still in effect. So there are little things like that I think we just don't think of. We think we protect ourselves because we're doing a waiver, but then you find out all these additional details, so you're not completely protected. Not that you ever could be completely protected, but I don't know if that's kind of how.
Yeah, it's a very much learn as you go, but at more risk than you usually would be in when you're trying to learn as you go.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting topic that a lot of people need to consider. I do agree with you that trying to understand and be educated and concerned and aware of all the legalities. Okay, because when you first start off, you're trying to get any case that you can just to have a field to investigate. You like to do events, you want people to join your group, and then before you know it, the liabilities are stacking, and the laws that you have to abide by are equally stacking. And once you start, getting events, like you said, and you stated, and you're having people come to your events, and people are more or less employing you to do these events, or you have a responsibility for these people and this event at this location. So like you stated, there's all kinds of laws, and of course you don't know them all. You've learned some of them. I've learned a few of them. Let's take a minute to talk about the most important the most important ones that you can think of at the top of your head, just doing residential cases when it comes to your team and client.
So I do have a little bit of information on that. I will state, however, we do not do residential cases. That's a decision that as a team we made a while ago. We do try to mostly do historical locations. Some are businesses or museums, historical societies, those types. And in those cases, there are some things we do that are very similar to residential cases, which would be to get several things signed. We normally like to work with a MOU, or a memorandum of understanding, which is kind of it's an informal agreement between the two parties as to what each party is expecting from one another, and it's just to make sure that both parties are understanding of what has been said via email, telephone. It's kind of a recap, and it just helps make sure that there's no miscommunication, and sometimes miscommunications can lead to lawsuits. So that's one of the things. Make sure that we have in writing that we have the right to investigate the location, and that we've been invited to investigate the location. And another one as well are liability waivers. And we try to do a bi-directional liability waiver, where we're asking them to waive liability if there's anything that we damage, obviously not on purpose, and vice versa. If we get hurt on their premises, that we won't sue them. So those are pretty much the things that we do for those locations. I don't know if you do residential cases, you might have some additional ones to add to that, or if anyone on the call.
Yeah, we do the ones that, please don't sue us. Yeah, form. We do confidentiality forms to where, we explain, that their rights, their identities are protected. You give us permission to publish any findings that we may have, but we, either you want to protect the privacy of your clients and ensure them that you will, or if you, depending on what the agreement going in is, you may be wanting them to sign their rights over for you to use any video, audio, or private information if they choose to, on a case-by-case basis on any type of publication. So if you're planning on putting like a film or documentary out there, you want to make sure you have the proper paperwork to cover your rear end.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in what you have tried to research and do when it comes to liability, like in insurance, and making sure that your members are protected and that you're not liable for damages and stuff, like when you're having events and so on.
Okay. So one of the ways that one of the attorneys shared with me is that if someone wants to sue you, they'll find a way. It's like your car. If someone wants to steal your car, they will find a way, regardless of how many alarm systems you put on it. It's just making it as hard as possible for someone to be able to sue you. That's what we're trying to achieve here. And there is no foolproof way. There's always ways, whether through neglect or anything like that, people could still try to sue you. So one of the ways that we looked into, or I basically went towards in order to protect myself and all the team members, is going towards incorporating. So you're basically creating this layer of protection, right? Because now you are operating as an organization, as a corporation, so to speak. And if anybody wants to sue, they have to sue the corporation. The only way they could actually bypass the corporation and sue you personally is if they could prove that you did willful neglect, or there's something very clear that you did not do. You did not do your due diligence. So that's certainly a layer of protection that we now have because we've decided to go with incorporation. But then I'd mentioned that I also want to protect not just the organization itself, not just myself as a board member of that organization, but also the team members. And so in looking at all the options, I mentioned at first that we looked into an LLC. Ended up actually going with a nonprofit because we're really not in this to make money anyway. So the nonprofit really fits our kind of what we're trying to accomplish a lot more. And the other reason that was attractive to me is because there is a law in place to protect volunteers, and when you're operating as a nonprofit, you're basically marked as a volunteer. I mean, which is everyone, unless there's something I'm missing out on. Most of us, there's no money in this. We're not getting paid. We're not employees. We're volunteering our time because we love doing this. And So there is a law in place to protect volunteers from liability as long as they're operating within the scope of what they're supposed to be doing for the organization. So that's the next big thing for me, is trying to craft a volunteer agreement that the team members would sign that would officially make them volunteers and would protect them under that law. And that's kind of what prompted me to reach out to you in terms of the inclusion in that, because you mentioned, and it would have to include liability waiver, obviously, for when they are doing anything on the team. And then the other one really that I was focused on was how did you, with your team members, ensure that whatever was done with other team members, as far as like what they did, recordings, videos, audio, anything that falls under copyright law. Copyright law is that the creator or the person that took the picture, took the video, recorded the audio, they are the owner of that. How do you make it so if they're recording those things under as part of the work that they're doing with your organization or with your team in your case, how do you retain those rights? How do you retain the rights to be able to publish that? And that's what I was curious, and that's what prompted me to reach out to you specifically. I've looked into some of that, but yeah, I was curious as to what your thought was on that.
Yeah, basically you get a form and it's pretty straightforward. I'm trying to pull it up here on my PC right now. All my monitors are messed up. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to reach over here, right out of my file. I'll read it to you. And like I said, pretty straightforward. But I'm not a lawyer either, and I definitely don't know if this is foolproof. But basically what it is, it's a video consent and release form that you would need all of the people in your group that you will be filming and recording and all that. Basically what this says is, it's at the top, it says video consent and release form. And it states, without exemption of compensation or other remuneration, I can't pronounce that, remuneration, now or in the future, I hereby give my consent to Justin K. Brown, his affiliates and agents, to use my image and likeness and or any interview statements from me in his publications, advertising, or other media activities, including the internet. And the consent is broken down A, B, and C, and it says permission to interview, film, photograph, tape, so on and so forth. B, permission to use my name, so the private and identity, and C, permission to use quotes from the interviews or excerpts of such quotes, the film, photographs, so on and so forth. I do have a copy of this, so if anybody is interested in having this and using it in their group, by all means. It also has a little section below if you're underage and you have someone signing for you that's your guardian, that's there too. But it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it's good for life. So it states in this, the below sign parent, or here, wait, hold on. This consent is given in perpetuity and does not require prior approval by me. So once they sign this, I don't need any prior approval for anything else they do. And like I said, as far as my research, I did not, get with a lawyer and say, hey, is this legit? I don't know. It depends on the state, like Nelson suggested earlier, if I need a witness, if this needs to be notarized. So at least that you have a form. So do you have any feedback on this? Do you know any information in your particular state that you would have to go through? Did you look into this a little bit further, Nelson?
Well, I looked at it in a slightly different way. So some of the agreements that we have some exclusive setups, so to speak, with some places here in Raleigh, where we were selected to be the only paranormal team that can come and do investigations at Mordecai Historic Park. Part of that agreement has that we have to give them the We have to give them rights to basically be able to use or the video, audio that we present every year. So, as part of that agreement, every year we have to present at one of their public festivals the findings at their Halloween festival. And so, I was trying to find out legally, how does the organization maintain the right to hand over, in essence, the rights to someone else to use the material that was recorded by someone else, that under copyright law is onto them. So what you were reading is basically just saying that you can use it, but you can't necessarily hand it off to someone else and say, hey, you can also use it.
Right.
So that's what I was looking into more specifically, and that falls under the laws or the copyright law of works made for hire, where if you work for an organization, a company, your regular job, you basically sign that when you start working there. Anything that you do while you are working there is the ownership of the company that you are working for. So that's works for hire. It's a little bit different when you're working with volunteers. You have to very explicitly state that what you are creating or doing while you are acting as a volunteer is to be considered work for hire, and therefore you are handing over ownership of that. You still maintain the right to keep a copy of it and to use it for non-commercial use, but that you are basically handing over those the rights to those materials to the organization, so then the organization can hand it over to someone else. Tracks.
That is very similar to, like, say, if a photographer took a whole bunch of pictures at your wedding and you wanted to give printing rights to the client. Yes. So there's a different form. So yeah, that's basically what it is. As long as it's written up properly and you pretty much give your client or whoever you're volunteering for, whatever, organization, you pretty much give them the rights to publish or use, depending on your guys' agreement. So yeah, it's kind of similar in that regard. Yeah. And that's pretty much straightforward too, it sounds like.
Yeah. And and the one you were reading as well, we have that as well in our liability waivers that we have participants sign, because we do take pictures, we do take video, and if we post that, we don't want them to come back saying, I didn't authorize you all to use my picture. Right. And we have all the team members sign those same ones, those same waivers at every public event that we do. So
I have to ask, are you batting 1,000? Have you ran into any problems, or is this just like you are super paranoid type of guy and you don't want to have any of these problems? I'm curious on why you're so meticulous in this aspect of the career.
Well, it's the level of risk that you're willing to take, right? And I approach everything that I do with that, assessing the risk. And I certainly, I have, a little 5-year-old daughter, and she's important to me. I don't want anything from this hobby of mine to come and affect, her life if something were to happen and I didn't, protect myself and technically, her and all. So, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm the type of person, I cross my T's, I dot my I's. I could certainly drive people insane doing that. But it's something I don't mind doing. I've been involved in a lot of homeowners associations. I've been treasurer, I've been vice president. So and those are all run as nonprofits. So this is very similar to what I've done with those particular items. And I know also from past experience, not that I haven't been sued, and that's not a challenge for anyone listening. I'd like to keep it that way. But I have been in a case where building this house, we had to go after the builder, and the builder was incorporated as an LLC, and the company, of course, had no money because it was failing. And the first thing the attorney's trying to do is he's trying to see, is there a way to pierce the corporate veil? Is there a way to bypass the corporation and go straight to him, showing that there's negligence? So again, it was anybody could sue for any reason, and they might not win. But a lot of attorneys will make sure that before they bring a suit forward, that there is a chance of that suit being able to proceed. And if by doing the corporation, adding that layer, we've added that that protection to us, and talking about the volunteer protection there as well, the Volunteer Protection Act, that protects the team. So those are all things to me that just kind of made it the perfect fit. Yes, there's some work you have to do at the beginning. You're talking about your articles of incorporation. You have to come up with bylaws as to how the organization is going to run. A lot of people think it's extremely formal, but a lot of that could be made very simple. All of the decisions, you just basically document them, put them in your minutes, and move forward. It also allows you, once you're incorporated, it allows you to start being able to create a bank account. It's very important when you're again opening yourself up for more liability if you start mixing your personal finances and any finances from anything that you're running on the side. So now it's a very clear delineation for me. These are my personal funds, and now we've got a very specific bank account for the organization.
So if you get audited, it's nice and tidy in that regard.
Yes. So exactly.
I completely understand.
There's some bonuses for us too, as well. Just, there's costs associated to doing all of this, but once you are recognized as a nonprofit, a registered nonprofit organization, you get perks. And I'm not just talking about tax, being able to receive tax-free donations and things like that. Not that we're interested in that. But there's a lot of organizations or companies out there that will give you free stuff. So, we'll be able to get Google G Suite for free, which, if you're talking about maybe a team of $25 a month, that's, that adds up. Heather, I think, mentioned to you some of the research or the data we're trying to capture. We're fortunate enough, I work in healthcare, and I have access to data scientists. And one of the pieces of software that they use there is called Tableau, and it really helps visualize your data and start establishing those patterns in a way that it makes it makes it easier to understand your data. And that's a $1,600 piece of software that we get for free as a nonprofit organization. So there are those perks that pay for themselves as well as part of having done this.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
All right. Well, Nelson, before we proceed, we're going to go to the chat real quick and make sure we get some shout outs done. And we may have a few questions.
I don't have any questions on Facebook.
Okay.
I have Josh Bender. I have Becky Compton. I have Heather Elliott. I have Wes Storm. I have Jenny Barth. Kelly McConkey.
My para-wife.
Of course, Nelson's watching. Jessica is watching. Jessica Bias. It's actually Emma because Jess is driving. I have Dennis Escock. Keith jumped in for a minute. I have Dan Porter. Let's see. I have Sandy Griffith. And Christy Brown.
A lot of people on Facebook, I see.
Yeah. And Becky had a question. Her only question was, is it June yet?
The weather's coming around. She must have something planned in June.
I think they have an investigation in June.
Ah, that would make sense. All right. Who we got on YouTube? Anybody?
YouTube has 4 people in the chat. The only ones that's commented is me, Joe Vitale, aka Truth Paranormal, and General 7 just jumped on and said hi, everybody. So YouTube is dead. Joe said it's because it's nice outside. I think he's lying. He's still mad about energy healing, and he told everybody not to be on YouTube.
I'm with you, Joe.
I hear your dog like tearing the crap out of something.
She is running back and forth.
Wow, that is really loud. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us on YouTube, even though, it's just a few people hanging in there. Sometimes, depending on the guests and the topic, it's more Facebook heavy than YouTube. But nevertheless, thanks for joining in. And yeah, it was funny, the whole campaign war they had for the last topic. That was very entertaining there for a while. And hopefully I did the topic justice. I mean, the patrons, I have to keep reminding them. I was like, hey, look, guys, you guys got first bids on these topics. If you want me to talk about something, we're going to talk about what you want to talk about. So keep that in mind, guys. All right. No questions on YouTube, right? Derek?
No.
None.
Okay. All right, Nelson. So where does that lead us now? Now that we've kind of laid the groundwork for, protecting yourself, ensuring yourself, from some of the liabilities that may come up. We talked about copywriting, the material, giving other organizations that you work for copyright, permissions to publish what is copywritten. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover? I do know that depending on what you're doing and what you're publishing, there's different type of legal forms that you want to include. Is there anything else that you include as far as covering your butt?
Well, confidentiality and non-disclosure, I think, is another item that's worth discussing. I know that you have a non-disclosure agreement, and I'm thinking in terms of, some of the things that we do is we try to seek out locations that have not been investigated. So we work with different historical societies, trying, to entice them to let us come in, do investigations. And if all of a sudden the fact that we're reaching out to them comes out, and then other people start contacting them, that kind of might muddy things before we actually had an opportunity to go in. So how do you protect that from happening? If something gets said that shouldn't have been said. That makes sense?
Yeah. There's non-disclosure agreements that there's different kinds. The non-disclosure agreements that we use when we do commercial films and there's locations that we're going to, we definitely my group is very tight-knit. We're very close friends, but that doesn't mean you don't need to use NDAs. With that being said, depending on what you're doing, you have to get NDAs for each individual project. For a location, if you're trying to protect the disclosure of location, you need to have that specifically written up. Disclosure of, certain things that you previously spell out and have when you go into the group, whatever that may be, the list, there could be a wide spectrum of things. I'm not thinking of something at the top of my head, but I do know there's 2 commercial films that we're going to be doing this year, and they have to be under NDAs because it's just how it works. If someone finds out that you're doing a film, for example, they could be trying to compete with you, getting in there before you do, and that that's going to have an impact on your project commercially and other ways as well. But I'm interested and curious about what you mentioned. When you're trying to get into these historic locations, they don't want to, a lot of historical societies, at least that I know of, don't want to be known as a paranormal location. A lot of the people on those boards just don't have any interest in it, and they see it as taboo, and maybe they don't want that to overshadow the historical significance or what they're all about. But, they do want to drive any type of avenue that will produce revenue for them or attraction to the historical site too. I notice a lot of libraries are interested in getting into the paranormal now, but like you're saying, you're interested in the historical locations. So, is there? I know you can't disclose some of these historical locations, but do you regularly work with a particular site that you do not release the location to when you release like evidence and stuff like that?
It really depends. I mean, it's based on the site. So I know. So there's one, and I can disclose this because it's already been announced anyway. But we're working with the Union County Tourism Commission, and they have an old jail there that's they are thinking of opening up and making it available for paranormal investigations. So they've seeked out our help to do this, and but up to the point that we had an agreement with them that we were going to do this, if that would have leaked that we were, speaking with them, having those conversations with them, then, like you were saying, that could have had other people trying to contact them, trying to get in, and maybe even completely ruined our chances of going in, or anybody going in, just because it might have turned them off, especially if someone's being really pushy. So I don't know if that's the kind of example you were thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of examples, and there's probably an infinite amount of scenarios that you could imagine needing an NDA and different reasons how it would impact if you if stuff got messed up. So with that all being said, let's just say your group signs an NDA not to disclose certain location. What would happen? Let's say someone did. Okay, hypothetically, and stuff got started. I mean, what would your next course of action? I don't want to put you on. I don't want to put you in the spotlight. But what would you do?
You're opening up a can of worms. I honestly don't know, and I say that because I guess I've told myself that I would rather. I would like to think that would not happen. Especially if it's been kind of made very clear. Like when you're signing this, it's like a rule. It's a code of conduct. You're not to disclose any of this information. And I would hope that, people would follow that, especially when it's written. It's if you don't write it down, you don't have people sign it, you don't have that action, then I think then you're opening up for people to do it, not maliciously, but by mistake or by not knowing or not realizing the importance of it. And I don't know. You seem to be thinking on that answer.
I am, because soon as we started talking about that, I started thinking about what I would do if it was violated.
Okay. Yeah, let's spin that. Let's ask you that question.
Okay. The people I work with right now are my best friends. So the chances of it happening on purpose is probably 0. Accidentally, if it happens, then is it worth? Do you have grounds to sue? What's the legal? You have to ask yourself: is there any legal reason to take action if they did that? Probably not. But let's say if there's some financial repercussions, or let's just say there's something that's going to really cause a lot of problems in the future and at this certain location. So, of course, you're going to do something internal. You may discipline them, or you may remove them from the group, or do something. But legally, there's not a whole lot you can do unless you can, if there's loss financially, or if there's some, injury to character, or to either yourself as an individual or to your group. I mean, you have to ask yourself all those questions, right?
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to invest in all this stuff too when you're trying to cover your butt? And NDA, you're kind of hoping that it's just a deterrent from them, just to say, hey, look, you signed this dotted line.
Well, it's like I was talking about the MOU before. It's just kind of what are the expectations from both parties? So as part of signing this non-disclosure, you're setting what your expectation is. So there should be, hopefully someone would think about it before they go and disclose anything, because they would hopefully remember, oh, wait, maybe I'm not supposed to talk about this. And then they wouldn't, out of, just wanting to be cautious. But yeah, right. No, I'm with you. I wouldn't want to go and sue people, especially if you're as close knit as you all are. It would probably be more of a, well, hey, moving forward for a while, I'm not going to be sharing any of these confidential things with you, just because of what happened. But yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, no.
I think what the takeaway from all this is with this specifically, what we're talking about is when you get into the normal practice of doing these things, and you get your team members or your corporation at this point used to the legalities and the processes. Later down the line, I think that's where the worth and the value comes from. Maybe you get to the point where you are on site at multiple historical locations. You're doing all these events, your bank account, money's coming in, money's going out, then there are, more at stake. So it's almost like you're training them for the future, I think is a good takeaway. What do you think about that?
I like the way, yes, that makes perfect sense. I like the way you're presenting that.
Okay, so it sounded good in my head. So, because I'm much like you. I'm really passionate. It is something that you need to take seriously and be professional about. It would be nice for us to get to the point where we're highly recognized for our professionalism, for our ability to work with historical places, other organizations and entities outside of the paranormal that may not think that we're reputable or whatever, or perception they have of us. And we're trying to raise the bar when it comes to folks like us in the paranormal. So I think that is a great takeaway. I think that we're trying to get there, and that's what we like to advocate. So I support your endeavors in that sector, let's just say.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Is there anything in the chat? Any questions? Any cool comments?
I do have a question that just came in. Wes wants to know. He said, "What about if the location wants to use your evidence or data for their purposes, like signs, TV, commercial, or printed advertising? Is that something the Ghost Guild should consider? Allowing someone to use your image?"
Yeah, he was just talking about that, so we'll let Nelson reiterate that.
Yeah. So, I was talking specifically about the location that we have an agreement with, where in exchange for investigating there for 3 to 4 times per year, we present our findings either once a year, a haunted Mordecai event. And as part of that, we also supply them a copy of all of the data that we presented to the audience. So we are giving them rights to use that information however they see fit, as long as they do not, how can I say, make it out to be more than what we said it was. So we're very clear when we present to the group that we are not presenting that this is paranormal. What we like about that presentation, it's more about these are some of the findings, these are some of the things that we've captured. We can't yet explain them. This is the process that we went through to debunk so far. We ask for their feedback. We include them in the debunking process. So it's more of an interactive session, but we do not go there and say, hey, this is paranormal. So that answers that particular one. Now, in terms of, we have been to other locations where we've done investigations, and they've reached out to us and say, hey, we have a news station that's doing a story, and is it okay for us to go ahead and share with them the video that you shared with us? And in those cases, we typically allow them to do that, as long as they still credit us for, when they present it, that they share the fact that it was us that captured it. Hopefully that answers your question, Wes. Wes is a great supporter of ours.
Awesome.
We love you, Wes.
And I don't have anything else. Do you have anything?
I've got nothing. Sam just joined. She said her internet's been crazy.
Well, hopefully my computer is not going to take a crap on me. I think I've had this issue once before. I restarted my computer like twice, and I had to actually shut down and do a hard restart. My left monitor is my graphics card is not even reading it.
Wow.
So hopefully that's just some type of glitch, and I can fix that. But yeah, I'm having my fair share of issues right now. It's very, very interesting. Hopefully, it's not my graphics
It's
card.
the spoon behind Nelson.
Very interesting.
It's the spoon behind Nelson.
Yeah, the fork is.
We've
giving
had a
off
rather
energy.
complicated conversation about that fork and spoon.
I can't.
If I position myself right, there we go.
You can toss some serious salads with that fork and spoon.
Oh heck yeah!
I love to cook, so hey.
Oh, I love to cook.
Oh yeah.
Now Nelson, let's take a quick moment. You know, we have a little bit of time left. You could shout out your group if they would like to, if you think that's appropriate. Let them know, you know, their names, their roles, and pretty much give some type of, you know, mission statement for what you guys are about.
Before I do that, before I change the subject, there's one more item I think you kind of started talking about that we never actually got into.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was, what do you do after, you mentioned like liability insurance, things like that. And I don't know if you all have any kind of liability insurance for what you do. I know it's something that we've looked into. No. It's actually, from what I can tell, it's pretty hard to get if you're not kind of an organization anyway. If you're not a company, so to speak. But even then, it's hard to get, because as soon as you mention the potential of going into people's homes or bringing the public out on investigations, I mean, they probably like have these alarm bells that are flashing saying, no. I've got some contacts that I'm still working on to try to get some liability insurance for us. But there's also bonding, which is another way. So an liability insurance, just my understanding of it from everything I've read, will cover you if you get sued and you lose. Then they will go ahead and pay for whatever the judgment is for, up to your amount of your policy. However, it does not cover immediate legal assistance or any of that. And so as soon as you get sued, if you have to get an attorney, you have to start paying that out of your pocket. Bonding will actually cover those costs for you. So that's kind of the difference between the two. So that's another thing that I'm looking into as a way to kind of protect ourselves. I mean, if we do everything we do, if we dot our I's, we cross our T's, you know, if hopefully we would win any kind of lawsuit, and then bonding would just help us cover our costs to cover any fees. And then, of course, ultimately, until we get to that point, it's easy for us just to say, hey, we've gotten sued, we don't have the money, let's just fold the organization and nothing happens, you know, to the team members themselves. And we have it set up that if ever we do have to fold the organization as a nonprofit, obviously you can't keep any of the funds that you have in your account. So we've got that automatically going to the Ryan Research Center here in Durham. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a great talk about parapsychology. It's a great place for that. We're lucky to have that in our backyard. So they are the ones that are going to be getting whatever is left of the organization whenever we disband. Hopefully never, but we'll see.
Do you give them any of your data?
No, actually, I have just recently signed up as one of their members. So I'm going to start participating with that organization a little bit more. I'm hoping I'm going to get a lot more contacts there and start sharing some of that with them.
Because their feedback would be really, really valuable, I would think.
Yeah, actually, one of their I don't remember his name, but one of the people that leads a lot of their stuff there has his own paranormal group here in the Raleigh area. But I've not been in contact with him. I'm kind of hoping to make that connection with him when I start going there. So, I mean, Lloyd Otterbach, if I'm saying that right.
Yes.
He has some classes that he gives out of the Ryan Research Center, which I've also looked into possibly just taking, just to see if there's anything else I could learn from him, because he's a pretty good good one as well.
Yeah, I just took a look at that online course myself the other day. I'm subscribed to a YouTube channel called Free Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove, and there was an interview by him just like the other day. Very intelligent guy. He's been doing it for a long time.
I've seen him speak once. He did a free presentation over in Durham on how to select a good medium. So I went to that. It was interesting. So, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that they give out there. A lot of good sessions, topics, and
yeah. If you take that course before I do, let me know if it's good and worth it, because it's $250.
Yeah,
that I saw.
Yeah. It's just a little less if you're a member of the Rhine Research Center. So it might be, you might look into becoming a member to see if you get the membership technically for free. if you know, if you compare the price, you might get the membership for free. And,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, bonding is definitely something that's I've ran into at least one business. They mandate it. You have to be bonded until you are allowed to come in and do it. And, and that's smart, especially if you're dealing with an historical place, or if there's items, or the location itself, is protected. Anything can happen. I mean, my God forbid the place burn down, or you knock over some artifact, or you break a huge, window or mirror that costs thousands of dollars, or electronics, or what have you. I mean, anybody can be at the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's definitely something that everybody needs to go Google and learn about if they haven't already.
Yeah. And one more topic, if we still have the time, that kind of falls into all of this. We're talking about potentially going into people's homes. We're talking about holding events with participants. What have you put any thought into background checks?
Absolutely. I do. Every time I do a residential case, I do a background check. Sometimes, in order to get a good one, you have to pay for it. But most of the time you don't, if you're good and you know what websites to go to. And I also do a psychological profile. And that's also something that's very worth your while too. Because when you're doing residential cases, what you really want to do is find a reason not to go. Because of what we've been saying the whole time, the liabilities, the time and effort and money that you're spending into this, you want to make sure that it's worth your time to go, and you're actually going to provide some help or service to these people. So, yeah, I definitely do. Absolutely.
So what about if you're looking to add additional team members? Do you do background checks on those team members?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's just as important. I'm not even against, now our group has talked about, needing an entry fee to cover a lot of the expense of liability issues and covering your butt too. So if you are looking to be serious about what you're doing events, you're going to people's homes, you're thinking about insurance or bonding and stuff like that, it is not rude and out of line to ask for an entry fee into your group. Just consider that. I mean, what do you think about that, Nelson?
We haven't looked into that really. What we've one of the ways that we kind of collected funds to help pay for a lot of the fees that we were going to incur as part of doing these things that we were doing in holding our events. We would typically kind of take how much it costs to rent the place. We would split it by the amount of people we were planning on bringing, and then we would tack on like $15-20 per person. And everybody paid it. I mean, including myself and all the team members, we all paid the same amount as everyone that came with us. So that helped us make some funds. I mean, it wasn't an outrageous amount, but that certainly helped cover a lot of the expenses versus just charging a fee for all the team members. That's just one other approach. But I've heard, a lot of teams do charge a fee. And And in regards to background checks, and this is just information I'm happy to share, and actually kudos to Heather on this. She did the research on this. But again, liability. If you're talking about doing background checks, you're talking about collecting social security numbers, information about someone that you then submit. Now you have information that if you don't handle that information correctly, you can be sued for it as well. If you lose it or something, someone's social security number, it's misused. So one of the things that she found, and she looked at different companies, but she found verified volunteers. And the nice thing about them is that you generate a link, you send a link to the applicant goes directly to their website, fills out the form, provides the social security number. You never get that information. And all they do then is they send you back a report saying whether or not, this candidate, based on your criteria, is someone you want to move forward with or not. So it kind of removes some of that. And it's very reasonable. It's $19 per credit report, not credit report, per background check. And they do all of the United States.
I think that is very reasonable.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm definitely going to have to get with you and Heather about using that. I like that.
And if they've volunteered with other organizations and have used the same company, then they'll share that between the two. So you don't have to pay again,
right?
Which is nice.
Yeah.
So that is something that we, for any new applicant, we kind of put that on them, as that is the one contribution that they do. They pay for their credit check. Or background check. Why do I keep on mixing the two? They pay for their background check. So we were just asking them to pay the $19 for that before we make a final decision whether or not they can join our team.
Nice. Yeah, that's actually really cool. There was like some type of national group. I forget what they were called, but they were trying to get people in each individual state to act as a hub of all of their cases that, people are seeking residential help or even commercial if they're businesses. They could, subcontract us out, but we would have to pay for our own background checks and so on and so forth. But it was much higher. I think it was like $50 or $60.
Oh, wow.
So I'm glad that it's cheaper. All right, Nelson. Well, we're going to wind this down. Let's go ahead. If you want to shout out your group members, give us any plugs, let us know what's going on. Any, drive any traffic to any certain website or event. Go for it right now.
Yeah, so I know they've already been shouted out, but I know I got Kelly, my para-wife. She keeps me sane. I'm over here and doing things a certain way, and she helps ground me back down. We've got Heather. I know you know Heather well. She's been you interviewed Heather in the past. I know. I don't think that Jason's on. And then myself, we've got some people that we work with on a regular basis, even some VIPs. Wes, for example, has been very involved in a lot of the stuff that we've done. Has been a lot of investigations with us. I know I think Jenny was on as well. She's actually with a group called Port City Paranormal. Good friend of ours. And she's starting to join more of our investigations. She went to Waverly with us. She's going on the battleship next weekend, USS North Carolina battleship, and she's going to Trans-Allegheny with us in June.
Wow.
So, I've got a pretty busy schedule.
I know we do. I know that we're probably crazy for trying to stack it up the way we are, but we can't help ourselves. We like it.
Tell you what, though, I hope at some point that our teams get to do something together, go somewhere, investigate.
I know
spend some time.
We had tried to do that early this year, but it just did not happen. And the places that you were interested in wasn't fitting us because we're trying to pick locations that we can do for a YouTube series, and we were trying to find the best bang for our buck. Places like Trans-Allegheny, Ohio State Reformatory, the big money places, they don't give you much time to do the stuff that we like to do. We take hours of B-roll. We want to set up interviews. So if you're just like a data acquisition team and you want to go in there, get the data, maybe do some experiments, take some photos, take your friends or some other people that are joining you. I mean, it just didn't work. But We are doing 2 events that we have booked already: Gettysburg Battlefield Bash and Mid-South Paracon in Kentucky. So if you're ever interested in going to either of those events, you can see us there. And if not, we'll just have to keep trying.
Cool. Sounds like a plan.
All right,
They
buddy.
should come to Gettysburg. That would be
That's
awesome.
a pretty good drive for them.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Gettysburg, Nelson?
Yep, been once.
It's pretty cool, ain't it?
Yeah, got some interesting stuff there on the battlefield specifically.
Oh yeah. All right.
Went to Jenny Bay, didn't get anything there. Went to the orphanage, not much, but yeah, the battlefield was good.
Yeah, I could sit here and talk for hours about that, but we're going to wrap this up, Nelson. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm glad that we got this in. Somehow I managed to get my computer half running and get this done. I'm sorry if there was any buffering or any technical issues on the other side of viewing, but please check out some of the links that I have in the video descriptions. I have the Ghost Guild's website, I have their Facebook page, and I think another link on there. I can't remember. There's 2 or 3 links, so please check that out. Thanks, Nelson, and to everybody else in the Ghost Guild. There are Patreon supporters. They've been, following our work. We've been following them, and hopefully you will see a collaboration of the 2 groups in the future. So I'm going to wrap this up, Nelson. If you want to hang out on the call while we wrap up the show, you're more than welcome. If you got to go, then we'll see you. Okay, buddy?
All right, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, there you have it. Nelson Nauss. Check out the links in the video description. We're going to take a look at these links here real quick. This right here is nagging the crap out of me. I got to fix it. Webcam. You can see part of my bed here. Sorry, guys. I couldn't hide that during the show. Okay, so if you're interested in the paranormal research and field work that I do with my team, please check out interfacedeath.net.com, which one you would have put in. The link is in the video description. You definitely want to check out patreon.com/supportinterfacedeath if you like what you see. If you want to be a producer of our video content, our live streams, our scientific research in the field, all those things, we'll elaborate that in a moment. The link's in the description as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check out the Necromancer live show on Facebook and follow the videos and updates there as well. Interface Deaths on Twitter and Instagram, so check that out. Now, Patreon is a way to financially support, whether it be $1 a month or more. There's tiers and rewards for doing so. Get access to exclusive content and be a part of our community and our video production and our field work. So we shout them out every single time. We got, let's see here, Clay Borman, RJ Murphy, Casey Schreiner, Jessica Bias, Scotty Fox, Paranormal Reporter, Joe Vitale, Heather Elliott, General Rogue, Craig Williams, Cherry Capital Shadow Seekers, and in the house, the Ghost Guild. Thank you very much for your support. Like I said, go over there at the link description, check out what's going on, check out the rewards. If it interests you, it will help us out tremendously. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us. Go vote for the next topic on My Paranormal Soapbox. And if you want to veto all those votes and get whatever you want us to talk about on that show, become a Patreon supporter and just say, hey, I want to talk about this. So those guys go first. Stick around for some video promotions at the end of this here shortly. If you have not seen the show, they're pretty interesting. You guys have a good night. I love you all. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Do you have that drive? That morbid curiosity to explore the darkness? Do you have what it takes to brave the night? You do? Good. night.
Are you down there? Not afraid. We know what it feels like to walk in the darkness.
Are you in this room over here? What the fuck, dude?
Whoa.
That's weird.
You didn't do anything, right?
No, it just turned.
Justin too close? No,
No, he opened that door and it went off.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you just run out of there?